On February 8th, Bob Iger presented Disney's earnings report, which was something of a mixed bag. The parks and their earnings were a positive, and if anything, that salvaged the whole presentation. But let's stick to the entertainment side of things, because that's what we're most interested in on this channel, and incidentally, that's also where the real bad news for Disney were. In this editorial then, I will go through what Bob Iger revealed, who is responsible for this state of affairs, what Iger will do about it, and why it, in my opinion, will only make matters worse. The viral headline was that Disney Plus had lost 2.4 million subscribers, but while it makes for a snazzy headline, it is somewhat misleading. The bulk of that decline was India. In the US and Canada, where each subscription nets Disney much more than in India, subscriptions weren't negative, just stagnated. Across North America, 200,000 subscriptions had been gained since the last report, which still isn't good, not when you consider how much Disney has spent on producing content for Disney+. Iger was able to put a positive spin on it though, claiming that their losses directly attributable to streaming had narrowed to 1.1 billion, which is a 400 million reduction from the losses in the previous earnings report. But it's still a loss of more than $1 billion, and that's just for the last fiscal quarter. Iger still maintains that Disney Plus will be profitable in 2024, but with the growth in new subscribers as stagnant as it now is, some significant cost-cutting will be needed to achieve that. Cost-cutting is indeed the name of the game though, as Iger not only announced that 7,000 employees will be let go, he announced that Disney would cut $3 billion in content costs. The industry trades will of course gloss completely over this, so allow me to drive the point home. This is the direct result of Disney's production output having become such woke, lackluster garbage that the audience recoils from it. This is the direct result of audiences sitting out Pixar's woke Lightyear, Disney Animation's even woker Strange World, and of course, audiences have already given up on Lucasfilm, and they are increasingly giving up on Marvel as well, with no single Marvel-only Phase 4 production coming even close to $1 billion. To put it bluntly, Disney fucked around. They found out, and now they have to save $3 billion they otherwise would have spent on more movies and TV series. Those $3 billion will be cut from the pot that funds all of Disney's, Marvel's, Lucasfilm's, and Pixar's content, whether for Disney Plus or the big screen. There will be less money for each and every project, and some projects that are currently planned, and may even have been announced, will have to be scrapped altogether. Of course, $3 billion worth of content creation being cut begs the question, how could they overspend so much in the first place, especially on streaming? Well, there is one person to blame for that, and it's not Bob Chapek. If there is one book that has not aged well, it is Bob Iger's memoir/How to Be a CEO handbook. The reason for that is that the final third of it is nothing but strategies and policies that we now, with the benefit of a couple years worth of hindsight, know were utterly disastrous. In this book, Bob Iger takes complete credit for Disney+, and in order to ensure it would be successful, he also details how he instructed the various divisions to spend money like drunken sailors on content for it. He didn't use those exact words, of course, but that was nonetheless the general message that he gave to the division heads, most notably of Marvel and Lucasfilm. Don't save, spend, and give Disney Plus audiences the big screen experience weekly on streaming. In order to ensure that they didn't skimp out on Disney Plus content in favor of theatrical where they might get personal bonuses, Iger even promised that executive bonuses would not be impeded. In other words, he removed accountability. That strategy, in no small part, contributed to Disney and Iger now being in a situation where $3 billion less will be allocated to content production. Because when given all the money and all the freedom in the world, the Disney creatives, the studio heads and their staff blew it. That's what we're seeing the results of now. Someone who saw this coming was Bob Chapek. During his limited reign, Chapek installed a new level of bureaucracy by creating a new division called Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution. This division took greenlighting power away from the division heads and creatives. Instead, this division would decide what there is sufficient consumer demand for that it deserves a green light, and of that, what is epic enough that it deserves a theatrical release, and what is so mundane it should be sent to Disney+. We still don't know what effects this system would have had, as the movies and TV series greenlit under it, such as the R-rated Deadpool 3 featuring Hugh Jackman, is still years away from being released. And who is to say that Iger won't cut some of these consumer demand-driven Chapek projects anyway? Another thing Chapek wanted to do was bring back accountability by giving the executives and the division heads much shorter-term contracts, so it would be easier to get rid of them if their projects underperformed. For all of this, Hollywood was in uproar, because how dare Chapek take power away from the creatives? Well, Chapek is gone now, and it's Iger's turn to restructure. Let's see what he'll do. The very first thing Iger did was to get rid of Chapek's Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution. Instead, he'll restructure Disney into 3 segments: Entertainment, ESPN, and Parks. Entertainment will be headed up by Dana Walden and Alan Bergman, so that division heads will report to them. About this new structure, Iger said, "Our new structure is aimed at returning greater authority to our creative leaders and making them accountable for how their content performs financially. Our former structure severed that link and must be restored." Allow me to point out the deception in that statement. Note how Iger first listed 2 items: authority to creative leader and making them accountable. Then he said the former structure, that would be Chapek's structure, severed that link, implication being to both. That is manipulative language, because while Chapek's structure did indeed depower the creative leaders, it did hold them accountable. More than that, it restored accountability, because it was under Iger's previous structure before that there was no accountability. The only thing Iger really did here was give the power back to the very same creative leaders whose output have caused audiences worldwide to flee from Disney, Marvel, Pixar, and Lucasfilm. Still, even if they have been repowered, as it were, Iger no doubt has some requests for them, seeing as the content creation pot is about to be cut by $3 billion. Wonder what genius he expects of them. Marvel and Star Wars will continue to do their own thing, and will follow that up in separate videos, but what of Pixar and Disney Animation, which in many ways embodies the soul of Disney? Well, about these, Iger said, "Today I'm so pleased to announce that we have sequels in the works from our animation studios to some of our most popular franchises, Toy Story, Frozen, and Zootopia. We'll have more to share about these productions soon, but this is a great example of how we're leaning into our unrivaled brands and franchises." Is it now? I can see how it might be profitable in the short term, but I kind of have a suspicion all of these started with Iger telling his division heads, "I want sequels to these movies, go conjure some up," rather than that the storytellers behind each of them came to him with ingenious and organic ways for where the story could go next. I see some red flags with that, because I'm old enough to remember the last time Disney forced sequels to their established brands. Before Bob Iger took over as Disney CEO for the first time, after Michael Eisner had stayed on for way too long, Disney was in something of a creative rut. Iger noticed that in various Disney parades, there was nothing new. Both Disney and the audience celebrated movies and properties released minimum a decade earlier, but there was nothing new to capture the public imagination. Or to be clear, there were new things, they just didn't capture the public imagination. During this time then, Disney Animation was focused on churning out direct-to-video sequels to their classics. I mean, even Bambi got a sequel. That's why Bob Iger was so hell-bent on acquiring Pixar in the first place, not just to prevent them from becoming a competitor, but to have Lasseter restore the proverbial magic back to Disney Animation. Bob Iger was the right man for the job of Disney CEO when he came in, and you can argue that he was for almost another decade after that, but I don't see anything here to convince me that he still is. I think that like Eisner before him, Iger has stayed for too long and new blood is needed. The reason I say that is because we have now come full circle, with Bob Iger repeating the mistakes that Michael Eisner did 20 years ago. Case in point, Eisner commissioned those direct-to-video sequels to secure a quick and low-risk buck, while Disney was in a creative rut where the big-screen projects just didn't work. While the scales are different, Iger is doing essentially the same thing now. And also like Eisner, he is trusting the division heads who have all been failing for years now to do it for him. What could possibly go wrong? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. If you like this video, please smash that like, and if you're new here and like this analysis, you might be interested to know that detailed breakdowns on why Nelson Peltz gave up his fight for a seat on the board, and on the failure of Disney Plus and the streaming strategy at large will be coming soon. Please subscribe and indicate you want notifications on all videos so you don't miss out on that.